Hey everybody, it's late at night and I am Norman. Tonight we're going to be doing a comparison of the Smiths PRS 29A and the Christopher Ward Sandhurst. We're going to put these side by side and they're going to duke it out. Let us begin. Here we have the two watches side by side. We have the Christopher Ward Sandhurst and the Smiths. The Smiths is an homage to its predecessor from the 70s, and the Sandhurst is an homage to the Smiths. Let's begin by looking at their cases. This is 38 millimeters. This is 36 millimeters. And if we look at the Sandhurst's case, we see that the sides aren't flat like a lot of watches. There's actually a lot going on here. You see a narrow surface that kind of sweeps along here, and then angling in is a polished surface, and we have quite a tall bezel. The lugs are 20 millimeters, and we have a signed crown with a cool red ring around it. The caseback has a nicely embossed British Army badge, as well as Christopher Ward and another nod to the British Army here. This is screw down, and it looks really nice. If we look at the Smiths case, we see that the sides are flat. It has a much smaller bezel, and it's brushed throughout. There isn't a signed crown. And if we look at the case back, it's much more bare bones. Smiths etched into there, along with some serial numbers and information that you would expect to see on a caseback. And this is also a screwed down caseback. The lug to lug is 18 millimeters. If we look at the dials, we see that the Sandhurst is definitely Smiths-like. The hands are quite a bit longer though. That minute hand reaches all the way to the edge, same with the second hand. And the hour actually comes over the indices a bit. They're stick hands, they're flat on the ends. And the second hand has red for nearly a third of its length. It looks really nice. They put their logo at the top, not at the 9 o'clock. Oh, controversy. If we look at the Smiths dial, of course it's Smiths style. The second hand is much simpler. The hands are still pretty long, but the hour hand doesn't quite reach the indices. Makes it a little bit easier to read, but honestly, I haven't had any trouble with the Sandhurst. The hands are stick hands, but there's little triangle ends on them. Both these watches have pretty decent lume, especially the Smiths. It has Super Luminova on it. The Sandhurst, however, is vintageified, so it's made to look aged, whereas the Smiths is just white. So it will have to age naturally. They both have a box sapphire crystal, which I love. Although I really like the high box crystals. But these are cool. This one has it as well. The Smiths has 100 meters of water resistance. The Christopher Ward has 150 meters water resistance. As for the movements that are in these watches, the Smiths features an ETA 2801-2. It's a hand-winding movement, and this is the movement that is found in khaki field watches, Loco watches, Panerai watches. The Sandhurst has a Sellita SW200 in it. It comes shipped, adjusted to COSC certification. Neither of these watches have screw-down crowns. The Sandhurst, when you do wind it, even though it's an automatic movement, when you do wind it, it's a little loud and grainy, but that's just getting nitpicky. This one winds pretty smoothly. This particular watch does run a little fast, but definitely within tolerance. Neither of these watches feature screw-down crowns, but their water resistance isn't dive watch level. However, you can swim or snorkel with them on, so they have much better water resistance than some other field watches, like the Hamilton Khaki and others. So that's definitely a bonus for them. I really like the look of both of these watches. The Smith style is just amazing. This one looks quite a bit more vintage than the Christopher Ward. The Sandhurst is definitely a modern take on the vintage Smith style with that case. Christopher Ward cases are just amazing. I have the Malvern and the C65 Trident also, and their cases are just phenomenal. The Malvern looks like dress watches that are way above its price range. It's just nice. So let's see these watches on the wrist. First up is the Sandhurst. I have this on the Hirsch Urbane rubber watch strap. I like the way it kind of looks like leather, but yet it's still sporty. You can swim in it. That size is great. It doesn't look overly large. Next up is the Smiths. I have this on a shell Cordovan band with a brushed Mr. Buckle on there. Nice vintage size. Wears really well. So of these two watches, which one would I choose? I love everything about the Sandhurst. The case is phenomenal. The size is pretty decent. The hands, that second hand is just awesome. Some people do complain about the length of the hour hand, but it hasn't really given me any trouble. I don't have any difficulty telling the time, even though it's so close to the minute hand's length. The crown is great. Such a cool watch. However, I think if I had to choose, I would pick the Smiths for a couple reasons. Number one, this watch is a leprechaun. It is so impossible to find one of these new. Even used, they're difficult to find. The light dial variant is all over the place, but these are really tough to find. This one took months of my brother and I both hunting for it. And I ended up buying this used, but like new. There wasn't a mark on it anywhere, but without box and papers. Secondly, the size. 36 millimeters is the perfect size for me. All of my favorite pieces that I have are 36 millimeter. Anything larger than that starts to just look big to me. The Sandhurst is okay. It looks large, but not overly so. Being 38, it's still sub 40, so that's cool. But I think all in all, if I had to pick just one of these two watches, I would go with the Smiths. Just barely. They're both phenomenal. I would recommend these watches to both outdoor adventurous and people who are working in offices or other environments, because they can both pull off a dressy look. If you put a nice leather band on them, they actually dress up pretty well, especially the Sandhurst with its touch of polished here and there. So those are the two Smiths homages that I personally own, and they're both great watches. If you prefer a more modern size, modern style watch, go for the Sandhurst. You cannot go wrong with Christopher Ward. If you like something more authentically vintage style, then I would say go for the Smiths. So there you have it, a head-to-head comparison of the Smiths PRS 29A and the Christopher Ward Sandhurst. Both Smith homages and both great field watches. Thanks for watching.